Morning. So, just going over everything that happened week commencing the 11th of February 2019. So, all last week, well, I should say all last week gone, I was actually pretty much off work as much as possible, pretty much in preparation for again, the continuing bit of the move and the amount of stuff that needs to be cleared out of the house. So Monday, Rob who works for us, was doing the fixing the bits of the trims that have dropped off around all the windows. So for some reason or other, when the house was built new, they must have measured the windows and then like given themselves a big allowance, and then there's a gap, I don't know, maybe anywhere between half an inch to an inch down the sides of most of the windows. And then what they've done is they've then screened that off with a piece of plastic trim, which is only fixed on with silicone, which kind of works for a number of years, but then after a while that kind of dries out, obviously contracts, and you get the frost and what have you, and eventually they just pretty much drop to the floor. So Rob's been going around and sticking them back on. Certainly all the ground floor ones he's done, but the ones on the second floor, unless I can get a hold of a ladder, he's not going to be able to get them on. So Monday was also the day that we had I had a health check back here at Ashgrove House. So that's I think it's for the life assurance, and just basically the mortgage company just checking to see whether we've got any immediate illnesses, because it will obviously, if we then take life cover out and we borrowed a substantial sum of money, and then obviously we've already got an illness, then obviously that would create a serious problem, because we have to have life insurance to cover the mortgage being paid off should one of us die. So a nice woman came out with quite a lot of chat, which sometimes I'm like thinking, oh, we'll get on with it. But on this particular one, she had this weird, unusual tale. And for anybody who's looking, I'm not sure whether you can see, but behind me there's an elephant. She was telling this tale about if you put an elephant by kind of like facing near the entrance to your house with a trunk pointing out, apparently it can bring you I don't know, financial good health or something like that. So Wen's now purchased one of those. But if you put the same thing, like, I don't know, Wen's mum has, Sherry has, like, elephants. She absolutely loves them. She's got them all over the house, possibly pictures here, there and everywhere over the mantelpiece, just say on the mantelpiece above the fire, just literally everywhere. But I actually don't think she's got them at the doorway or the entrance to the house, kind of like facing out as if the elephant's heading out. I'm not quite sure who told her this, but she recounted a number of stories where people who actually put this elephant in, I don't know what you call superstition, an old wives' tale, but people who had done this with the elephant and then come into money or something along those lines. So I'll let you know whether the elephants, obviously time will tell whether the elephants have any effect on us or not, but kind of like anything's worth a try. But apparently, so if you have got any elephants lying around, like, they don't have to obviously be real ones, and they obviously don't have to be. That elephant behind looks like it's definitely had a substantial amount of food. The elephants that I've seen in kind of like when I've been going around at Busch Gardens maybe for instance, or at Chester Zoo, certainly look a heck of a lot thinner than that one does. So I don't actually think you actually need a massive one, but for some reason Wen's like bought this big one, so it'll probably end up getting kicked here and there, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. So yeah, we had to do, so the health checks went alright, you know, in terms of blood pressure and weight, measuring weight and height and that kind of thing, just BMIs. The rest of the, yeah, I've put in here the feeling of dread is what I was referring to in terms of I've started tidying up the loft. We're really fortunate in that we've got this main house, and then we have a separate detached garage, and that has like a peaked roof to it, and then a loft space, and again a loft space in it, and even just the amount of stuff in that loft alone is just massive. You know, it's big enough for 2 cars, but again the amount of stuff that's in it is just frightening. So I've had to bit by bit move that down, and you know, decide what bits can just go straight away to the recycling place, and what bits potentially have value and that could be, you know, sold on, or I mean, there's like everything in there that there must be. I think there was probably about 4 or 5 scooters. There's there's golf clubs, which probably for me only get used once a year, and it's just paint and absolutely loads and loads of stuff, and it's really heavy. It's not the safest place up there either, because it's not all completely boarded out. There are some bits that have got lights still, kind of like gaps in the floorboard, so in the floorboarding, so that you can actually pass stuff down lower. I thought, what else? I think there's about 4 paddling pools. So you know, I think the plan is to sell all those on Facebook Local. Although it seems, I don't know, just found that the whole thing about Facebook Local a bit bizarre, because I don't know, but I think anything that you put for sale, that goes on, so that, you know, effectively all the people who are within your set of friends are going to see everything that you post, and somehow that seems like kind of like embarrassing. They'd be going, oh my god, why have they kept hold of that? And I don't know, it just feels a bit embarrassing, so I think I might have to put it on somewhere else, Gumtree or eBay. Maybe not eBay, because some of the stuff is just that big that you couldn't afford to ship it everywhere else. So anyway, I've got all that to look forward to. On Tuesday, I woke up, although I'm still doing this 7 o'clock waking thing, although I've got up kind of later this morning, because this is actually technically a day off for me, although it's, so I was up at 5 o'clock, and that was purely based off anxiety, just kind of like worrying about work, and specifically it was actually on one particular big project, and just thought, oh, I need to get that done. Just kind of like taking time out of work. I'm so in work all the time that if I feel that I'm, you know, taking my eye off the ball or anything, that literally does cause me to, you could call it stress or anxiety, but you know, if you're waking up and I'm just thinking, oh my god, I need to get this done, I need to get that done. It's not a nice feeling. I think it's partly because I'm trying to reset my body clock, so that I am getting the 7 hours sleep and not the 6 that I was getting before. I actually do think it's probably, I do feel better for it, although it's not really a straight light for like judge at the moment, because I'm spending so much time doing physical stuff like tidying out the loft and moving this and climbing up and down ladders. So there's different kinds of tiredness. There's kind of mental tiredness, and then there's physical tiredness, and then there's the combination of the both. Tuesday last week, the 12th, also saw the valuation for Wits End being done, and this time there was no. That was kind of like the second time that the value has been round, but this time there appears to be the valuation is done, and according to the mortgage advisor, there doesn't appear to be any issues. They've off the record have kind of like said that it's worth the sum that it's been valued as, which is it seems crazy, but it's valued at £1 million, even though at one point it was up for 1.2 million. I mean, it does really sound, like a crazy amount of money, but that it is what it is. A house, outbuildings, a bit, what you could classify as offices and what have you, a large area and what have you. It's it's going to come. It's not going to be cheap, is it? So, I don't class this as cheap. But what I can say is that what I have done is quite analytical with these things. So, even taking aside things like the actual physical 6 acre side of things of the proposition, I've looked at the square meterage of things like the house, and then kind of like extracted the value for that, and then said, okay, well, what's left after you've taken away the house? That leaves, let's say, £350,000 is where the business is worked, and then looked at the area that goes with that, and then compared that to other places that we've looked at in terms of value to get like a cost per square metre, and it really does stack up a heck of a lot more competitive than the other properties that we've looked at. So that's obviously really reassuring, and helps to give me the confidence to go, okay, well, we could, there's a lot of value in just the business premises alone, so that's good. Tuesday was still tidying the garage loft. Again, like I say, it's so big, and the only way you can just do it is take pieces down bit by bit, and then obviously you've then got to kind of load it up into the car. The tips open Monday and Tuesday of a week, and then Wednesday and Thursday they're off, and that's because they work obviously on a Saturday and Sunday, so they have to be off for there. So the rubbish actually has to go into the back of the car. Obviously that takes time. You've then got to drive to the tip, and it's not just a question of just throwing things willy-nilly into the household non-recyclable skip, something like that. I will try and sort it out and put cardboard in the cardboard skip, and there's a hard plastic skip, there's a metal one and a chipboard one, so obviously all that takes time. Tuesday I went back into work and took pictures of the server cabinets, because in our when we bought a new server, we ended up buying it looks like a gigantic telephone box, but it's a massive server cabinet, and so I've taken some pictures of that, because they're going to need to go. They're absolutely ginormous, and they're literally going to need to go, because I've got the one that the server's in that's the right size, a really nice looking HP one, and I've got the gigantic one that's the wrong size, then I've got the original one that we had from the previous office, and then I've also got one that was in the office when we actually moved down to the ground floor one, which I actually don't think we really need to reassemble when we leave. So I've actually got potentially 3 that I can sell. So I went and measured all that up. So I did go briefly back into the office. On the back of the valuation being done and looking good, Wend then decided to do a presentation to everybody at work to let them know about Wits End on the Wednesday. So that needed to be done. So we just took everybody through the plans. I think people have maybe known a little bit more. Obviously, the fact that some people have been watching podcasts and I've been detailing the move, maybe not in the specifics of exactly kind of like the names of the properties and stuff like that, but I've certainly not made any secret that we're in the process of looking to move. But so the presentation showed people pictures and videos of what the property looks like from a business point of view. We did some bits of explanation about how we're thinking of managing the parking and whatnot. So yeah, I think it was generally received pretty well. Everybody seems pretty positive. I mean, probably from their perspective, the biggest upside is that obviously the improvement in the parking situation and the green space obviously has to be good for some people. Allegedly, there's statistics that prove that if you are in an environment where you're surrounded, if you're like effectively going outside in greenery is good. I think it's something to do with the colours of just being out in greens is good and relaxing for you. So I think there is scientific evidence that proves that actually being outside in the countryside is good. People seem very keen on things like having windows, and this the office side of things has a lot of windows, so that's obviously a good thing. The Wednesday saw Kat did some initial looks at, whilst I was in the office, did some initial looks at audiences for the We Deliver Facebook ads that we're looking at, and that was quite difficult because what I wanted to do was to run ads that had an opening slide that says, are you looking for a reliable courier, and then it would then say kind of like the target area, so like Altrincham, Winsford, Knutsford, Northwich maybe, I think is that 5? Something like that. But anyway, like the 5 locations. Problem being there that when you then for kind of to actually do the local area, you kind of like put a pin in the map, and then you can't go, okay, for some reason or on the UK one you can't go okay, I want to take in, you can't, there's not a variable, it goes up in steps, so you can't go like 1 or 2 miles, it goes kind of like within the very narrow radius around it, and then after that it's like 10 miles around. So you have to have, for them to let you run the ad, the audience size has to be of a particular one, so that means you can't go as narrow. So we wanted to pick things like people who had anything where people put themselves down as business owners, and I think the other one we probably used was specific job type. So if you worked in, for example, a warehouse or something along those lines. I think maybe we looked on people's financials, how much money they did in terms of audience size. But anyway, I think what we really had to do was to get it to work, we had to go not from the very narrow one, which I don't know where the radius is, as in just like in Northwich Central Tower, but like 10 miles on the outside. And the thinking for that would be, if you're working at a business in Northwich, then the chances are you actually aren't going to be necessarily walking to work. You're going to be feeding in to a commuter zone that's going to be within that 10-mile radius of the town. So that's how we managed to get the audience numbers up. LinkedIn's slightly stranger in that you'd like to think that you could do the same thing and pick the towns, but the towns must have to be over a certain size. So I think we only had things like Stockport, local to us, Stockport, Crewe, Warrington, Chester maybe as well. So again, we need to look at just picking up in those areas that are local to us. So we changed the leading title on kind of the video and also the animation to say Cheshire at the front of it rather than the specific village or the specific town like Northwich or whatever, and just made that a bit more generic. Thursday we were actually technically off in that it was Valentine's Day. I didn't work. Did it work in the morning? I think I probably did. I worked in I did some more work on a big project that I'm working on, kept on top of my emails. Thursday worked out to be a good day for us as a company, because the pitch that we did to which was for the local, to promote the bids at one of the local towns near to us. So we got the news that we've kind of like passed the first round. So the first round is that you do your presentation, you send your document in, and then they review it, and then I think there was probably like about 10 people, and then I think they must whittle it down. I don't know what the numbers are, but we're now in the kind of like the final round of presentation, where we literally get to pitch to the board ourselves in terms of what our vision is and how we deliver it, and to answer questions, which I think, I could be wrong, but I think that's actually next week. But that's like a major it's just a major thing for us, because it's kind of growing the destination marketing side of the business. And again, it's security for the people who work on that side of the business, because the current Northwich, as we are at the moment, the business improvement district, or bid, it's now up for a yes vote again. So we've done, it seems crazy that we've gone there, but we've had 5 years. And so what they do is they go around all the businesses again, and they say the businesses have to vote to say whether it's a good or a bad thing. And there are, this is kind of like businesses pay rates and they're expensive, and this is a further, it's only a small percentage. I think it's maybe, I couldn't actually tell me the amount, but it's, we're not talking like 5% or anything like that. It's like in the ones or the twos. It doesn't seem like an awful lot of money for, well, I think it actually does deliver a heck of a lot of value for the businesses, because if you think the individual businesses, the marketing that they would do off what they could do, they couldn't kind of like create an overall event to maybe come into the town off themselves, unless there were maybe a pub, say for example, with a music thing. So yeah, I think it does deliver an awful lot of value for them. So I'm very hopeful that they'll vote yes, but we've got that marketing for the yes vote coming up for Northwich. So that gives us some element of more security for that side of the business. Valentine's Day also had a very we went to the Belfry, which is a golf. It's supposed to be the best spa, voted the best spa in the UK or something along those lines. And normally in a spa room you might have a sauna or a steam room, and they have like a collection of them, of hot and cold rooms, so kind of like different ones. I think one of them was called the Crystal Room or something like that, and basically what that is a steam room with, in the middle of it, they've just got a big crystal. So it's kind of, I don't know, I'm sure for some people, it's a great experience, but for me, kind of like, yeah, okay, well, you know, is there a difference between one steam room and another one? Well, yes, there is, because there's a slightly different temperature on them. And again, one saunaed from another. I don't necessarily think there was any big difference, but I suppose that's the whole marketing of it, and I think they described it as a fire and ice experience. There was definitely some ice. There wasn't any fire, but obviously it was very, very hot. We had some hotel, when they bought some hotel chocolat pack, which is 330 grams of all kinds of chocolatey treats, which we split between us. Felt very greedy having all those, but it was lovely. Wend had wanted to book the restaurant, and when we got down there, they'd said, okay, well, we're full, it's Valentine's Day, we can't get you into the restaurant. And I hadn't really paid much attention until this point, but when said, look, I've sent an email to you asking for us to book somewhere in the restaurant. Unfortunately, in this modern day where you've got your phone with you, when was able to find it, and they had actually acknowledged it, but then hadn't done anything in terms of booking it. So the manager or the manageress at the time came over, she went through, read the emails, checked again with the restaurant, and she was then able to get us into they have different restaurants, but into the buffet style one for about 9:15. So actually that worked out really well, because by the time we'd come back from the spa and troughed all the chocolates, you wouldn't necessarily, and I think that was maybe about 5 or 6 o'clock. So after you literally fed your face with a whole load of chocolates, would you necessarily then want to go directly out and having a meal? No. But then by the time it got to 9 o'clock, you know, we were pretty much we were then pretty much ready for it. So yeah, that was good. The restaurant that we went to was like a buffet style one, so you could help yourself to starters, mains and desserts. They had some live music on for a while, and you know, we talked a lot. Obviously, we were hoping that we would have heard back about the valuation, got the mortgage offer. That hadn't come through. It was sat with at the time, it was sat with the senior underwriting team, and because we've been here before, with the whole Brook Farm thing, I was like, okay, so here we are again. We're back with the senior underwriters. This is where the wheels dropped off the car on the last time, because they looked through and they drilled down a lot further. So they're like, well, we haven't had anything back on the Wednesday. What's the reason for that? So it is good in some ways that we work together, because we can try and avoid talking about work things when we're away, but obviously it's difficult, because it's on Wen's mind as well. So we never, even if it's on a personal thing, when there's such a busy personal life, all their holidays and friends and what have you, there's always plenty to talk about there. We've got so much going on with the kids, always stuff to talk about there, and then you've also got work as well. Most other couples would probably, each of them would work in separate companies, so there'd be a lot of kind of like talk about their individual workplaces, or at least when we're talking about work, we know because we work at the same place, so that kind of helps. So I think, what time did that go on till? I think probably about 11 o'clock, and we were both absolutely done in after that, and just went to got a decent say, nice sleepers, and small, but like a nice room. Wasn't in there. The whole hotel as a whole, I think, was looked a little bit tired. So things like the covers that were on the lights, like plastic covers, had been broken, pieces of paint chipped and what have you. So even in the spa, kind of, I get the impression that they didn't have enough people. It's obviously, when you're running a business, getting the right, it's about getting the right amount of people. I just don't think they had enough people going around and just doing the general thing. So if in the spa you've got a bin where you put kind of your slippers that you're wearing, or from your robes, and the robe bin's not being emptied, I just think it just lets it down. So maybe there was areas where maybe I didn't actually think the signage was particularly good either. Obviously, when I was trying to find my way to the pool, there wasn't a big sign on the door saying pool this way or anything like that. It was at the bottom of a paragraph which said something like, when you're entering the pool, get a shower or something like that. But that actually turned out to be the way from the changing rooms into the pool. And I thought, okay, well, how did you get there? So I actually went out of the changing rooms and then came round and tried to enter another way, which was really confusing. So yeah, I think when we checked out on the Friday morning, I went and Wen went to the car, because it's not really a big fan of when it's not so much complaining really, but unless you give feedback to a business, when you go to a business, I think you're not doing them any favours by not telling them if it's not so much ways, it's not so much a complaint, but it may well be, and I'm not looking for kind of like money off or vouchers or anything like that, but if you want them to improve, then you and improve for other people, then I think you do need to be honest and give them constructive criticism. So I explained to them in the same thing, in terms of how many people, it's a golf course, and I know the golf course is that they have people out there mowing it and looking after that. And I said, sometimes I said, well, how many people have you got looking after the golf course? It must be 10 or 15 people, would have thought, going around constantly mowing and looking after the greens and what have you. And you maybe need to change the balance to have just a few more people just doing the basics of the DIY within or the maintenance within the hotel. Because I think our door in our hotel room, when you open the door to the bathroom, it was like the creakiest thing from the worst haunted house. And that's just how difficult is that to fix? It's just spraying a bit of whatever silicone, WD-40, whatever, some kind of lubricant on it, and then you've not got a door. I mean, if I'd have got in the middle of the night to go to the loo or something, and then that door had been closed, I probably would have broken half the hotel up. It's just kind of those basics like that was missing. And I just said, if I'm going, you might go, okay, well, what difference does it, how does not doing that have an impact? Well, I wouldn't come back and I'd go, yeah, it was a nice hotel, but I wouldn't go then and actively go, oh my God, it's such a brilliant place to go, or something along those lines, because I wouldn't like to recommend it. So that's the cost of their business, by them not doing enough staff in there and providing that level of service, then means that I'm not going to be going through, and I'm not going to be being an advocate, and I'm not going to be promoting their hotel. So some way, shape or form, they are potentially losing business just by like shortcutting on the staffing levels. Anyway, Friday, when we did wake up, I think at the time, I'm trying to think of the sign, 7:07 I think it was, when put a phone on just to check her emails, and the email had come through from NatWest to say that the mortgage offer had come through. So it's one of those ones where Wendy has to do it and read the detail just to make sure that everything that should be in there was in there, and it was. I mean, you'd like to think that that would be a cause for mass hysteria and celebration, but for me it is a cause for celebration, but the problem comes with leaving this house, which I feel, this really does feel like my home, more so than anywhere else. So yeah, it's a positive thing. On the way back from oh god, yeah, we had breakfast as well. I cooked breakfast. Yeah, it was. I always have. I quite like things like beans on toast and what have you. The full cooked English breakfast is something that I look forward to. But I don't know, the beans had such a weird taste, and I've got to say it's got to be probably one of the most disappointing breakfasts, because I had a sausage as well and a really big chunk of gristle in it. I know. So then left there, didn't eat the beans, in fact I basically left kind of the majority of it and just went and got myself a muffin instead, which was good that you still had that option for some kind of continental thing, but I ended up not having the full cooked breakfast that I normally really look forward to. I tend to eat really big on that, and whenever away I'll have a big breakfast but then kind of more snack for dinner, so that certainly wasn't the case. Bacon was nice though, I'd say that, and toast was nice, but yeah, beans tasted disgusting. I don't know what they'd put in it or what brand they were using, but it was just was horrible. Same for Wen as well. Wen didn't eat hers. So the way back we stopped at Trenton Gardens, which is a really big garden centre. I think at that point we were looking for an elephant. As crazy as us, you would imagine, a wooden elephant. They have got at Trenton Gardens. They've got a big garden centre and then a load of individual businesses that are in these wooden chalets, I suppose I can describe them as, and a lot of them are craft based. So we went round there. I actually bought a waistcoat from there. I very, very rarely buy anything as such, and certainly even rarer in terms of clothing, but I went in and saw this waistcoat and I thought, wow, that's really nice. So I'll have that. Then we went to the Boar's Head, which is, I'm trying to think, is it? I think it's Whitchurch or Nantwich. I think it's Nantwich or Nantwich. And that was good, interesting to see. They had I loved the decorations in there. Took some pictures of dressing and kind of pictures that they had, and just kind of things for mood boards, because we are going to be thinking about how we treat the treatment of the new offices. Then we've contacted Hinchcliffe to try and book them to sell Ashgrove House. For this house, Wendy and I have got obviously two big differences of opinions here, and so Wen wants to sell with Hinchcliffe, where I'm like, well, why don't we go with purple bricks or even do it ourselves? And ultimately we run a marketing company. We've got plenty of people who are great at photography, or two, a dedicated photographer. We can hire a lens for the special lens that you use, that I don't know whether they're called fish islands, but they've got a name, the ones that kind of like take like the wide angles that are in there, you know. So it's like, well, you know, if this house is up for 500,000, half a million or whatever, if they're looking for a 1% fee, that's like £5,000. And you know, ultimately when you're looking for a house, where do most people look? And it's like Rightmove. So I'm questioning myself, you know, where is the value in having in this modern way of searching? And I don't necessarily think people actually go round. I just don't think people would go round estate agents that much. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I definitely don't see it as being I think, you know, the market's definitely changes with the amount of online people. I think there's like iAgent, there's quite a lot of online ones these days. And when we came back, we spoke to our next door neighbour just up the road. There's only the 3 on this thing, but he's also sold his house, and he was like going, you know, purple bricks aren't bothered about the amount of people who come into your house and the people that they don't vet them so much. But I've really no idea. So we're going to wait and see what the fee is. I think if it's 1.5%, I'm just not prepared to hand over that kind of money with at least giving it an attempt of just putting it on the market and seeing where the house sells itself. So anyway, we've got that one to look forward to. Friday, I think I did some more I did some more tidying out of the garage loft. It seems to have been working on it constantly, but you know, actually there's just so much stuff up there, and it just takes time. Saturday, the house repairs were continuing. I mean, all this week, every day, I think that Robert was available. So I don't think he was available on Thursday. I think he did an installation for. No, he was out. That's right. Robert was out with John doing a delivery of a photocopier. I think it was. And then I'm trying to think, either Thursday or the Friday, I did some detailed thinking on we delivering and kind of like how many vans we'd need, because at the moment we've got the 2 vans at the minute. So we've got the small kind of like transit style one, then we've got a Sprinter. I think we also need, and the conclusion that I've come to is that for health and safety we also need what's called a Luton van. Those are the ones that are kind of like more boxy but still like a quite small van. The thing about that is that they have a tail lift on the, I think I was looking to that on the, I can't remember what day it was it's the Wednesday or the Thursday, but this week, you know, it was kind of like doing the thinking about how that would happen. So if through the Facebook advertising we can drive significantly more business, then I think the plan will be to get a 3rd van and take as much of the driving business, you know, focus a lot more on like the same day couriers, and then we can use Robert as cover for across all parts of the business. So he'll work on the installs, he'll work on the print side of things, and he'll also work on we delivering. And amongst those 3 roles, that will keep him busy, and that's before we even look at the development and the ongoing kind of like estate management side of things. If we do get, you know, Wits End, somebody's going to, for example, need to get on the lawnmower tractor and mow the lawn, and you know, do, you know, those kind of things that are pretty much, I'm not saying a full-time job on their own, but certainly somebody's going to have to do it. so it might as well be somebody who works for us and who literally fancies doing it as part of their role. So I think Wednesday, Robert was out doing an install, so, and Thursday he was out, but Friday he was back here, doing more of the sorting out the externals. Saturday again, Robert was doing, I'm looking outside here because I was trying to remember what he was doing, so he was outside in the garden doing things like hosing the fence down with its high pressure wash, and it brings up these fences that are covered in kind of grey and green, just water damage, and you power wash them off, and they literally do. It's amazing. It's been there for whatever, 13 years, 12 years, is it? Yeah, about 12 years, and they come up looking like new. So it really has made a massive difference. On the Friday, Friday night was the start, I think it was, of getting some of the stuff down from the loft. So, we have a water company, and I'd managed to accumulate so many cases of water, so I had to bring those down, and water is just so heavy, just so bulky and so heavy. So what I was having to do was then pour all the water away, and it just kind of went in this. It seemed nutty that there's people at the world who are struggling to get clean water, and there's us being in this luxurious position where we're actually pouring water down the drain. It just seems ludicrous, but there's not really much more we could do. I need to, all the bottles and whatever you need to be recycled and whatever, so I can't really put 4 bottles of water in there for the glass recycling or the PET recycling. So our youngest Brody was helping with that. That's literally unscrewing. It must have been between 100 and, I don't know, maybe 100 to 150 bottles of water that I had up there that needed emptying. And then so on the Saturday there was just the continuation of of tidying the toy room. Toy room is just kind of what you call a study at the front of the house, but Brody's got still a lot of the toys that were left. We've got a big kind of low-rise cupboard, and it's just like full of Nerf guns. I think the cupboard itself must be maybe a metre, probably about 750 mil square and about 1.5 meters long. It's just full of junk and rubbish. So just really going through and tidying that, deciding which toys are just plastic and can be thrown away, which toys I want to keep. I like toy cars. It's going to sound crazy, I still like toy cars even to this day. So there's loads of, pretty much, if it was a Hot Wheels car I'd keep it because I just love all Hot Wheels cars, and if it was anything else with and it didn't have any sentimental value, then that went for recycling. I think even though for the recycling it didn't actually go at the tip, I think when I handed it over I spoke to the guy and went, there might be some value in this bag, so hopefully they'll give. I think they have people who go there and they I think what they must do is there's like again in one of these Luton vans, and I think what they just do is they take the stuff that's got value, and I think they must just put it on in car boot sales or something like that. So chances are some of those toys that I've given, they will be recycled and give joy to other people. So that's quite good. Literally spent all day Saturday doing the tidying. Finished at 9 o'clock. We sat down and watched, as a family, watched Silence of the Lambs, which is a great film with Hannibal the Cannibal, a bit of a horror one. It's good watching. I think it was made in 1998. So what's that, like nearly 20 years old now, and God, when you're watching the fonts on the opening titles just look like so dated, but it's still a great movie. Watch that, although I have to say I did, with obviously going up and down the steps and tidying this and of the ladders and going to the tip and what have you, I was tired, so I did fall asleep in some parts of the film, although when the music, or you get to a scary bit and they increase the volume levels and what have you, then I'll tend to wake up and watch it. So I think probably maybe went to bed maybe about 11 o'clock or something like that, just because I knew that I'd be up early. So got up at, I think it was about 7, well actually it wasn't that early, it was probably about 7 or 8 o'clock. Filled some of the holes, took some of the stuff in the toy room where I'd been like taking pictures down and taking these, got a load of IKEA things where you would put DVDs on them, so the holes, filled the holes in the walls for Robert to then paint. So I've kept all the old paint, so Robert came round and he was putting the paint on the wall and he was like, is this the right colour of paint? I was like, oh yeah, we've only ever used this one yellow colour. And it was only then when I was painting it, I was like thinking, it does look a different colour. And then I remembered that Wend had gone, okay, well it's yellow before, but now we want it a more kind of post-it note yellow. I think we actually maybe went to B&Q with a post-it note and got them to scan it in, but it literally was like a darker colour, so it ended up being where Robert then had to paint the whole room. But do you know what, it's made a massive difference. And you've thinned it out. There was a couch that was in there, like an IKEA fold out kind of pull out bed couch, and that was broken. Did I break that down on the, could have been that. I think I broke down on the Friday night as well. Needed unbolting, so that's been like reorganised, so it looks all nice and clean in there. Sunday went for a dog walk with my mum and dad, brought them up to speed, and that's after I think we'd gone and seen them on the Friday as well and had a bit of a catch up with them. But myself, Brody and my mum and dad went for a walk. They're off on holiday again. I think they're going to flying out to Tenerife now. They're in such incredibly good health, and they're both now over 80, but they're still, quite. We went for a walk that was an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. I think that's probably one of the things that I think, assuming the move goes through, which obviously is looking more and more likely by the day, I'm definitely going to miss the ability to be able to walk on, you call it like hard, like path on pavements and stuff like that. So from where we live here in Lethwich, you can walk down to, there's like a viaduct, and then when you walk along the viaduct, you can walk parallel to the I think it's called the River Dane, is it? Or River Weaver, sorry, yeah, the River Weaver, and you can walk along the side of that, and then you can cut up through Kingsmead, and it's just, and then you end up, I don't know, well anyway, it's over a walk for over an hour, and you're getting a lot of scenery. You see people, the dogs can have a bit where they're running off the lead for a while, the rest of it then they walk along with the lead, and it's just good, just a really good walk. So I think the only way that I can do stuff like that going forward would literally be to park up a car and go for some alternative walks. And I don't know, I think I'm going to miss that probably quite a lot. On Sunday, when went out, she went out for the day with her mum and Mick. They went to, I think it was called Dagfield, and that's where they got the elephant from. And then they also went back to the Boarheads for Sunday lunch. Ended up bizarrely in exactly the same table that Wendy and I had lunch on the other day. Really great place to eat as well, I have to say. We're talking about don't go to the Belfry because it was I don't know, just a bit tatty and a bit tired, But if you were going out for something to eat, then yeah, the Boar's Head, Now Which Way is definitely well worth going. Lovely place to go for something to eat. Sunday night we're now onto the last series of Luther, the one that's just been on this year. I tell you, he's basically, bar for his beard going a little bit grey, he's really, I think it's 9 years between the first Luthers and this current ones, maybe 9 or 10 years. He's not changed at all. In fact, if anything, he's looking in incredibly good physical shape. I suppose that's kind of part and parcel of his job though, isn't he? You know, in terms of having working out and keeping trim and what have you, as part of his job role, I suppose. But yeah, great. I'm not dropping any spoilers or anything, but yeah, it's been a good thing. We're speculating what to watch going forward after this one, because I think we'll finish Luther this week. So I think we're talking about watching The Man in, I think it's the High Tower, I think it's called. Something to do with, it's like a what if the Germans and the Axis powers had won the war, and it's kind of like playing that out to see how that works out. What else have I got here? Obviously Rob, like I say, was busy painting and fixing more things around, you know, putting a lick of paint on skirting boards, just kind of just making it look more presentable, look around and you know, just a bit freshening up and paint. I'm looking around here now, you know, in a room that's got dogs walking around, they tend to like wiping the schnauzers, so they have beards, and they like wiping their faces and dirtying the units and what have you, so there's a lot of cleaning that's going to have to be done. I think the other thing that I probably want to mention more than anything else is just really just to talk about the actual mortgage itself. It seems crazy in this day and age that we're going for a property that's, you know, in theory like a large sum of money, and it is. There's no mistake about it. I mean, it's always going to be, you know, you're buying a house that's a 5-bedroom house kind of thing. You know, I had a look at, did the detail on it. I think it works out that even the top floor, which I think almost feels smaller in some way, that's 33% bigger. I'm very into like doing the, you know, like analysing the detail on these things, but we're in a really strange time at the moment, where, you know, we've got a lot of changes to go through. The business is evolving, you know, as we're bringing more focus on things like signage and what have you. Our main client's business changing. So on Friday, the marketing director, that was his last day at work, and that came as a bit of a shock to me. And you could go, okay, well, is it now the right time to be, you know, some people would probably go, okay, well, this is a nutty time to be moving your business and expanding and what have you, but it depends how you frame it. You know, you could say, okay, well, you know, Chris who's gone could go somewhere else to another business, you could end up getting more business, you know, we could end up getting less business. You know, the truth is, whatever decision we're going to make, and again, this is one of I call it Gary V philosophy, but you could never play out all the possible permutations of what could have been. You know, so for example, you know, in the other, if we stayed at Northwich and what have you, who's to say that, you know, by staying there, you know, could have died in a car accident or whatever. It's just the variables, you just can't plot them out. You can only roughly guess and say, okay, well, this would have happened and that would have happened. You can't. The because of the variables that are in it, you can't possibly know one way or other. So you just have to make a decision, then stick with it, and then make the best of that decision, whatever that may be. So there are, you know, we're looking at a lot of changes at the moment when we're moving and thinking about. I mean, already I think this week we're going to be taking Robert on full time, because we don't, you know, he's such a great guy, so we don't want to lose him. So like I say, lots of changes. Yeah, going back to the actual, you know, how did we get to, I think when people are looking potentially from an outside and going, well, you know, how is it that they can get this mortgage and what have you, and, you know, and maybe struggling to get on the first time, you know, into the housing market themselves. You know, it's quite a funny one, because if I look back and think, you know, I didn't get my first house until I was 25, which was a new house, and I'd stayed at home until I'd stayed at home until I was like 25, and I'd been working since I was 16. So, you know, unlike a lot of people who maybe are going to university and kind of even like, you know, building up student debt and what have you, and going travelling the world while they were doing all those things and all those really cool things, you know, I was getting up every day. I've literally worked every day since I left school when I was 16. So, you know, that definitely does help. So that's why I was able to, you know, buy my first house when I was 25. After that point, around 25 is when I got when I moved down to get my job down in Macclesfield at, I think it was called Leisure House at the time, and then became Casper Marketing. There was quite a relatively big increase in my salary at that point for me to make that kind of like sizable move from where I was in a job that I was, you know, pretty much happy at. And then for whatever 2 or 3 years, well, probably about 2 years, I then rented a house, went and, you know, I was in a house share, if you want to call it, something like that, or somebody rented a room to me in a house, and I was maybe paying, I don't know, £30 a week or something like that for stopping over the 5 days, which, you know, helped them out. They had a lodger, that's right, that's what I was referred to as a lodger. So obviously in all that period of time, all I was doing was effectively just banking, you know, banking all as much savings as I could, and that put me in a position where then when I did buy a house, which was another brand new house in Wincham at the time, I think I spent £110,000, I think it was, something like that. So I think the first house I bought when I was 25 was maybe £60,000, which seemed like a massive sum of money. And then when I bought the house in Wincham, and that was £110,000, the idea of spending £100,000 on a house just seemed like beyond ludicrous to me. And then you know, looking on now where I'm at, you know, with the house that we bought here, Ashgrove House, was for, I think at the time when we were moving, I think we were selling up, and Wen sold her first house, and we sold the house in Wincham. I think it was something like, I think I'd done a budget. I think when went over something like over £100,000 over budget, you might go, oh my God, why spend £100,000 more than you would do? And I'd done the detail on the houses. We were looking, I think, at around Stretton and Appleton near the time. And what I'd done was all the houses that were in there, I created a spreadsheet and totaled up all the square meterages of all houses that we were looking at. And then when I put the square meterages in this house in terms of the rooms and what have you, this one was like by far the cheapest. Price per square metre or price per square foot, whatever you want to call it. It was literally like a no-brainer, and you know, this house was built from the ground, so we bought it like the plot of land separately, and you pay stamp duty just on the plot of land, and you don't then pay for the actual physical house itself, because you buy the land and then kind of like you build the house. So that kind of like that saves you a whole big chunk of money. But you know, to do that was a massive gamble. We had to sell 2 houses, move into rented accommodation, and build this. So my point is, we've not, the transition from you know, to be able to, you know, to buy, you know, £1 million house, 5-bedroom house with offices and 6 acres and all the rest of it. It's not been easy or anything like that. We've not had, you know, there's not been any windfalls or money or anything like that. It's just been through hard work. You know, when was a teacher, a well-paid teacher for a long period of time, and you know, right from the get-go, it's been through hard work. So even when I had my first house, I had 2 jobs. So I did my did my kind of like Monday to Friday job, which I worked incredibly hard at, including doing like plenty of overtime for literally without any kind of like pay or even any recognition as so much. And then I'd come down at the night. I worked in a bar as a cocktail barman for a while, and then I worked for longer hours on a Saturday and Sunday being a groundsman at a local authority playing fields. So I was literally working 7 days a week. So anybody who kind of like you know, thinks that it's all born off I don't know, let's say the business now, you know, but even the business, I've spent, you know, we've spent 7 years of like really, really hard work, where I've literally worked 7 days a week. You know, you know, I've gone away on holidays and, you know, literally worked every day during the holiday, like being up in the morning at 6 o'clock and down on the sun lounges with a laptop answering emails and what have you. It's only been as of late that I've actually had a proper holiday. So yeah, anybody who reflects and questions and think, well, how can they do that? The answer is pretty similar, just literally like hard work and just literally working since I was 16, just really, really hard work. I mean, ironically, I suppose there is a parallel. If I look at Elliot, who works for us, he's now 21. He's in a house in around Winnington, really nice house, great first starter home. But again, you know, how is he able to do that? Well, again, he's started work when he was 16 with us, and he's worked really hard, and he's earned it. So like anybody who's like going, well, how's he done this and how he's done that? Quite easy. He's worked. You know, he hasn't spent the time of going out getting drunk down a student union or travelling the world or whatever. It's just like hard graft. So probably further down the line, you know, people probably question him and how's he doing it? Quite the same thing, like hard work. So I think that's probably something that I wanted to really put on record while I had this opportunity. Anyway, so onwards. This week, I think we've got Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday now to prep the house for sale. We've got the photography, I think, coming on the Thursday this week. Plenty of stuff, so it's just going to get harder and harder. If I thought the garage loft was hard, like the main loft is just like unbelievably hard. The hall at the moment is just like full of just rubbish, things like carpet and boxes and what have you, and bin bags full of just stuff. Yeah, just more hard work ahead. So anyway, tell you a bit more about that next week. Yeah, thanks for listening.